my view on the manipulation of Bitcoin is that it's not impossible, but I also believe it isn't happening to a large degree. And I don't think it's likely. A number of reasons that make it better than gold. One, you can see all the transactions on chain, so you can see the addresses. Two, so it's pretty hard to create paper Bitcoin. I mean, people have done it. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried did it, and others have done it. And there'll be, and there are derivatives on it. As long as there are derivatives and futures on it, that's paper. And so, there is, theoretically, if those markets became enormous, if those markets became 100 times the size of the daily trading on chain, well, that would be a different matter. Then maybe there'd be manipulation taking place. And by the way, that's what's going on in gold.
Rising gold and Bitcoin prices have sparked concerns about inflation, mounting debt, and economic instability, exposing weaknesses in the global financial system and fueling discussions about the future of money and wealth preservation. This trend has captured the attention of experts like Lawrence Lepard, a crypto enthusiast who views the current economic landscape as a failing monetary system. Lepard points to the rising value of gold and Bitcoin as evidence of these challenges, despite increasing interest rate. He predicts gold could reach $3,000 to $4,000 and sees Bitcoin as digital sound money, likely to outperform and eventually replace gold due to its transparency and resistance to manipulation. According to Lepard, specialists worried about inflation are turning to gold, commodities, and Bitcoin as safe havens. He also highlights that the U.S. federal interest expense has surpassed $1.2 trillion, while federal debt continues to climb, further underscoring the appeal of Bitcoin's unmanipulatable nature compared to gold.
So we know something is wrong, because the price of gold and the price of Bitcoin the price of gold at a record high. The price of Bitcoin is bumping up against its old record high, and I think soon we'll break through it and go down to much higher highs. And so these two things are canaries in the coal mine that warn you that the monetary system is sick. In theory, this should not be happening. I mean, they've diverged from real yields. So, real interest rates, have gone in the, generally speaking, when real interest rates, Powell pushed the rate up and raised real interest rates, that should have made gold and Bitcoin go down. It made them go sideways. And now, as he started to ease again, they're strongly going up. So the other thing that's interesting that's happened recently is that he cut the short-term rates, but the long end got away from him or is getting away from him. I mean, the 10-year yield has gone up substantially since his cut. So, what I think all this is there's a slightly different tone in the markets that is coming to realize what you and I have known and what many Bitcoiners have known for some time, which is that the system is broken and the government can never stop printing. This is Lynn's fabulous meme, you can't stop this train, right? I mean, it's baked in the cake. I mean, another data, there are all kinds of data points. I mean, one data point is, U.S. federal interest expense, it's up over 1.2 trillion run rate. Or, the chart that showed the jump in the U.S. federal debt right after September 30. They closed the quarter and then added between $400 and $500 billion of debt in a matter of a week or two. I mean, it's just everywhere you look, you see signs that things are breaking. And then, you've got extremely smart investment managers like Paul Tudor Jones, who's, self-made billionaire through, investment management, and saying, look, inflation is the escape valve, or inflation is the way out. And that's why I own, gold, commodities, and Bitcoin. And, he's no dummy, right? So I think that, but that he wasn't on TV saying that 2 years ago. I mean, he was kind of supporting Bitcoin a couple of years ago, and others are saying it. Druckenmiller is saying it, El-Arian is saying it, Gunlock is saying it. I mean, even Jay Powell said it. Jay Powell said, this deficit cannot go on forever. He's right. I was kind of shocked he said it, to be frank. I was kind of like, okay, so why are you enabling it? But, something's got to give, right? And so that really is the $64,000 question. What's going to give and when's it going to give? And none of us really know. But I think what will inform us of when it's giving are the prices of the alternatives. I mean, you can either decide you're going to hold your savings in fiat currencies, in debt, or to some degree in stocks, or you can say I'm going to step out of that system and put my savings in something that can't be printed. And the three things that naturally come to mind are Bitcoin, gold, and silver. So. And I think what's happening is just more and more people are coming to, the choosing box number B. Okay, I get it. I know what's going on, and they're not going to fix it, so I better be over here. So, it could get kind of crazy. I mean, I think when Bitcoin takes out 73, I think this cycle, I agree with Max's numbers. I think we're easily going to be in the high 200s, within 6 to 12 months. So, and I don't think, there are a lot of people saying gold is at 30 or 2,700 now. I'll be saying, it's going to go back to 2,000. It's just, it's just a spurt. It'll come back in. And I strongly disagree. I think gold's going to 3,000 or 4,000 on its way to much higher. for a variety of reasons. So those are the kind of the signposts that I think we should all be watching. The other one is the debt market. I mean, if we continue to see the long debt rates, interest rates go higher, that will mean that there are fewer buyers of the debt. And I suspect, all this at some point is going to create tight financial conditions that the Federal Reserve is going to have to create an excuse and react to. And, the reaction will be what they have always done in the past, which is they will cut interest rates and they will initiate QE and print money. And then if it gets bad enough, they'll initiate yield curve control and say, we are going to hold these yields at this level. And at that point in time, anybody in the world who doesn't understand that they can never stop printing, it will be just completely brain dead. At that point in time, our stuff's going to go nuts. And it'll be, to me, we're in the end stages of, this great fiat, Keynesian fiat experiment. But these end stages could still take a number of years. I don't think it's not like we're going to hyper-Bitcoinization next year.
Lawrence Lepard analyzes Bitcoin manipulation, asserting that it is rare due to the blockchain's transparency and decentralization. He argues that Bitcoin's volatility, which has increased five-fold in a year, makes it difficult to manipulate. In contrast, Lepard notes that gold is easier to manipulate because of its centralized storage and the power of central banks to print money. He envisions Bitcoin as digital sound money that will outperform and eventually demonetize gold, reducing its value to that of jewelry, a process he expects to take years or decades. While acknowledging concerns about potential manipulation, Lepard remains skeptical, believing that attempts to control Bitcoin will ultimately fail. He also recognizes that gold and silver remain superior stores of value compared to fiat currencies, but maintains that Bitcoin's growing acceptance as money will drive its prominence. Let's return to the interview to gain further insights from James Lavish and Lawrence Lepard.
My view on the manipulation of Bitcoin is that it's not impossible, but I also believe it isn't happening to a large degree. I don't think it's likely. A number of reasons that make it better than gold. One, you can see all the transactions on chain, so you can see the addresses. Two, so it's pretty hard to create paper Bitcoin. I mean, people have done it. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried did it, and others have done it. And there'll be, and there are derivatives on it. As long as there are derivatives and futures on it, that's paper. And so, there is, theoretically, if those markets became enormous, if those markets became 100 times the size of the daily trading on chain, well, that would be a different matter. Then maybe there'd be manipulation taking place. And by the way, that's what's going on in gold. I mean, the amount of gold that's traded on, on exchanges on a daily basis is huge multiples of the underlying amount that we mine, in any given year. And so, it's a tail wagging the dog situation, but that's not the case in Bitcoin. The futures and options are mild or small compared to the total outstanding and the total tradable. So the other thing about Bitcoin is, I mean, gold is easier to manipulate in the sense that, gold has never gone up 5x in a 12-month period. And so, if you're going to manipulate something, you better be sure you have a printing press behind you so that when you get on the wrong side of the trade, you can print the money to cover your margin calls, right? And that's kind of what I think they did in the various times when they attacked gold. Because, they'd attack it and they'd probably get underwater, but they could sit there long enough and they had unlimited printing press and so they could suppress it. When something goes up 5x in a year, which Bitcoin did, in the 2019-20 area, 2019-2020, that creates one hell of a big hole. And by the way, you don't have a BIS, you don't have coordinated central bank actions. Hell, the central banks don't really even understand what Bitcoin is. So while I'm sure they're all sitting there thinking, oh shit, this is an alarm bell that we don't want to have going off. And it's possible they're even thinking, how are we going to figure this out and how are we going to suppress it? I wouldn't doubt me that they've got a working group working on that. I think that to think they've actually done it and got it in place and are ready to go with it, I'm skeptical. I don't believe that's the case. So, and I don't think they will in the future. I think this thing is going to move too quickly and it's going to overwhelm them. They had a long time, to manipulate gold. From 71 to present is a lot of years, and there were a lot of organizations, and they knew where it was, and it was centralized. It was in central bank vaults. I mean, they could lie about what they had, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is a different animal, so I'm not too worried about it. But I hear, I'm sympathetic to the fear that it has and could be manipulated. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there will be people who will try to, trade around it and push it in a certain direction. But my sense is they're going to get wrecked. I mean, if you're short Bitcoin right here, and the God candle arrives, as Samson says it's coming, I agree he's right. You could get wrecked really quickly. And I mean, Caitlin thinks that there's a chance that some bank will be on the wrong side of the Bitcoin trade, and a GSIB will get wrecked at some point. I don't know if she's right, but it could happen. I mean, you don't want to be short an asset that can go up 100 or 200% in a matter of months, and this thing can do that, right? So it's a different animal. What I've always said is that gold is analog sound money and Bitcoin is digital sound money, and silver's not even money anymore. I mean, it is, but it's been kind of demonetized by gold. The silver gold ratio is really, I mean, it's kind of amazing. However, silver is a very critical metal that's used in a lot of applications, so that it's got kind of a dual role as somewhat of a monetary metal, but also an important industrial metal for solar and electronics. Look, Bitcoin is going to demonetize gold. That's just a fact, in my opinion. It will flip gold, and gold will go down to its jewelry value, and some, a lot of the premium will come out of it. But I caution people to say, not tomorrow. This is a multi-year, arguably multi-decade process of that taking place, and in the scheme of things, gold and silver are still way better than fiat, in the environment that we're currently in, and so. 8 billion people kind of intrinsically understand that gold's money because we've had 5,000 years to prove it. As we know, the number of us who understand that Bitcoin is money, it's a much smaller number, and it's growing rapidly. That's why Bitcoin's going to outperform. But it's going to take a long time until it sinks into everybody that this is the base layer of the monetary system. But I think it will.
Bitcoin has reached new record highs, surpassing $89,000 on Monday, with a 10% surge in the past 24 hours. This rally has prompted asset managers like Bernstein to advise clients to consider adding Bitcoin to their portfolios. Prediction markets anticipate Bitcoin hitting $100,000 by the end of 2024, with its price heavily influenced by Donald Trump's recent presidential election victory. Platforms like Polymarket have reported increased confidence in Bitcoin's continued ascent, further fueling optimism among investors and crypto enthusiasts. Matt Hogan, chief investment officer at Bitwise, observed that long-term Bitcoin holders are steadfast, refusing to sell below $100,000 despite rising demand. Hogan noted that short sellers are hesitant to oppose Bitcoin's bullish momentum, describing it as standing in front of a freight train. This sentiment is bolstered by record inflows into Bitcoin ETFs over the past week, signaling strong investor confidence. Asset managers like Bernstein predict a dramatic price surge, driven by increasing institutional and retail interest. Despite the excitement, data from Econometrics reveals that Bitcoin's current rally has yet to surpass its growth during the market surge in early March. As Bitcoin's momentum builds, questions remain about its future. Will Bitcoin continue to outperform gold in the coming year, or will gold make a comeback? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.